At an early age, Zach Gowen broke his leg, and that led to a cancer diagnosis that would lead to the amputation of said leg. Now, most would say, you know what, I can't really do what I could have done with two legs, but Zach Gowen said, fuck all that. I'm going to be a wrestling superstar. He got on the high school wrestling team. He was bound and determined to be like so many of his heroes. He was able to reach the pinnacle, WWE, at a very young age, but by his own admission, he was not ready for it. What goes up must come down, and Zach Gowen nearly came crashing down. It really hurt inside, and thankfully Zach Gowen is here to tell the tale because he turned the tide. I'm John Renton with my review of Dark Side of the Ring, Zach Gowen Against All Odds. This is probably the most honest I've heard any talking head be on at least the last number of seasons of Dark Side of the Ring. He didn't say, oh, it was this, oh, it was this. He admitted that it was his fault. He admitted that his attitude, his ego, the inflation of stardom, whatever you want to call it, he was the reason that things basically got fucked up. Yes, there were other mitigating circumstances. No doubt the WWE locker room was full of a bunch of piranhas. More like Piranha 2, based on how some of that booking went, but I digress. Zach Gowen is still here to tell the tale, and this is the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring Season 7. And I'll talk about that a little bit later at the end of this review, but let's talk about the fact childhood battles and just the fact that he is still here. And I honestly didn't even put two and two together that he is just a couple years younger than I am. I was born in 1981, and he was 19, 20 years old in WWE. It's just actually 18, 19. He was really young. They couldn't quite keep their story straight about how young he was. But the whole point is that Zach Gowen really did have a hell of a blitzkrieg run in WWE. The talking heads are great, by the way. We have Zach, we have Charlie Haas, Rhino, Jimmy Havoc, Kalina, the mother, Bill Behrens, and later his wife Kelly. And he did it really is a miracle that Zach Gowen is still here. And it's just an amazing roller coaster of life. But he seems happy, healthy, he's clean and sober, and that's just fucking great. He's got a wife, he's got children, and seems happy doing public speaking and what he's doing. But anyway, he talks about, getting to meet Vince, and then Hogan comes out of the shower and sticks out his hand and shakes it, and yeah, he says, well, he was doing all right for himself. Zach seemed very good-natured about this stuff. He was getting drunk at an early age before he was of legal age. And he watched wrestling with his dad from an early age, but his dad left when he was 4. I guess those must have been pretty damn memorable shows because that's a lot to remember at an early age. And he, there were things at home. I'll actually skip ahead. It turns out the dad also hit the mother. No, that's bullshit. You don't do that shit to the person you're with. I don't care what gender you are or aren't. No, that's bullshit. So they, him and his mother did live in a not great area. There was a drug house on one side and a prostitute on the other. I did appreciate how open and honest the mother was. She seems like a very nice woman. At summer camp, Zach broke his leg in 2 places. They couldn't figure out why it wasn't healing properly. There was a tumor on his left femur, and they did 6 weeks of chemo. And basically, he was in Children's Hospital and everything, and then when other kids started dying, it really started to set in for him. And the idea is instead of continuing to do chemo or anything else, or anything surgically, because it's on the goddamn bone, do an amputation. And thank God the cancer didn't spread. It's unfortunate he lost his leg, but he beat it. Fuck cancer, by the way, I just want to say that. And he joined the wrestling team in high school. They did skip over a little more of the childhood, but I guess it was just, I know it's only like a 45-minute program, but still. He, talked about how other wrestlers, of years gone by did amateur wrestling and stuff like that. And okay, he wanted to be like his heroes. Can't fault him there. So he wanted to be the first one-legged wrestler and ass fisting contest. I think that's how that phrase goes. And he paid for wrestling school up front. He was not upfront, though, about having the one leg. And then when he took his leg off and everybody was surprised, okay, let's see what you can do, kid. You paid. He was a natural. You see some of the stuff that he did. He had a match with Truth Martini. For a guy with one leg, he did a lot of impressive stuff. The drop kicks. He was able to do the arm drags. He was also able to take a beating because he was a very spindly individual. It was cool to see him against Truth Martini. Kind of wish they would have gotten Truth Martini to be part of this show. Unless he's dead. I don't know if he is. I'd feel really bad if he wasn't, and I just presume that. But Zach wanted to go to TNA because of the X Division. Those were some of his favorite wrestlers. He felt he could do the high-flying stuff. He did have a dark match against Truth Martini. Bill Barron's got him booked. And good. You know, I do recall hearing about Zach Gowen, like, on message boards just before WWE signed him, but I also didn't know that he was a one-legged wrestler. I saw the name, but I didn't put two and two together. The crowd popped for the fact that Zach removed his leg and was doing the stuff. He was talking about, like, big arenas. I mean, by this point, when he showed up, they were doing stuff in the Asylum, which is National Fairgrounds, I believe. And WWE heard about him. We get audio from Bruce Pritchard in 2019, the lying sack of shit that Bruce Pritchard is. He didn't lie this time, but he is a lying sack of shit. John Laurinaitis ended up signing the wrong one-legged wrestler. Somebody had Steve Kern was training in Florida, I think Tampa, and he had part of a missing leg, but not the full missing leg, I don't think. But the guy was in his like late 20s, early 30s. He signed the wrong one-legged guy, and that's just always been a rib and something that Jim Cornette mentioned. And since John Laurinaitis is a piece of shit, let's just make fun of him. So, I do recall his debut. He was a plant at ringside. He was waving the flag for Hogan's Mr. America. No, really, they had Hogan under a goddamn goofy lucha mask, and it was obviously Hogan. And they were doing this, and he was feuding with Piper. Because we needed that feud in 2003 after Piper was not in great shape and had just come off of some kind of accident. Rhino talks about how he was a friend of his, Detroit natives. I do remember Zach Gowen's debut, and it was pretty cool. Sean O'Hare. I mean, you have to wonder what Sean O'Hare could have done had he been able to turn, the same promos in live as he did on tape. God, he died soon, though. It really is a shame about Sean O'Hare. You have to look at him late in the late era or late part of WCW, and even look at him during the Invasion. He would stand out because he could hit impressive shit, and he was only like 22 or whatever. So Piper even told not O'Hare but Zach Gowen, hit me as hard as you can with that flagpole. Make it look good, kid. Piper was trying to rip off his leg, but he was pulling on the other leg. So he had to say, Piper, Roddy, you need my other leg. And he does, and I do remember seeing that, like, oh shit, he pulled the guy's leg up. But then again, they did that with Mad Dog Vachon. When he lost his leg, Diesel and Shawn Michaels did that. And a good, in your house, good friend, veteran enemies. And Charlie Haas, he seems to be doing well, thankfully. I know he's had some issues, personal issues. So, the idea is that Vince McMahon is putting him and Stephanie, Zach and Stephanie, against the Big Show in a big old match, to earn a contract. And because Angle came out and Angle signed the Big Show, and then we got a F5, and I might be mixing those, we might just go two, but Zach Allen was able to hit the one-legged moonsault, very impressive, got the 3 count. And as I recall, though, that actually took place after the stuff with Hogan and Piper. Hogan was unhappy with the Mr. America stuff, but also apparently his WrestleMania payoff that he called chump change. Well, Hogan was beat to shit, and also him and Vince overperformed at WrestleMania 19. But that being said, Zach Allen was not there at WrestleMania 19. Maybe he was. I don't know. He might have shown up at WrestleMania 19 in the crowd. But Hogan quit about 2 weeks into the run. He'd been doing Mr. America for a little bit. Piper then did a show. I can't remember if it was Unreal Sports or what it was. I can't remember. But this was the famous one where he talked about they're all dead, this kind of stuff. And I don't remember if this was the same show that he did where he says, my pension doesn't kick in until 65. I'm not going to make it to 65. Unfortunately, he didn't. I believe he died at 61, 62. And Vince basically said, well, fuck it, just fire him. He doesn't want to see him again. And then Piper was back for, WrestleMania 21 for the Hall of Fame and everything and whatever. But that being said, they had to fast track all this stuff because of Hogan and Piper and stuff like that leaving it, Hogan in the sense that he just wanted to leave, and Piper because he vented his real feelings about the various wrestlers that have died that the company didn't take care of, which kind of gets spun around a little bit later. They had to fast track the match with Vince that might have happened at either SummerSlam or happened possibly in October. He faced off against Vince. That was a famous match where he kicked the chair. Too many pronouns, pal. Sorry, Vince. Kicked Zach Gowen, did a one-legged drop kick, and the chair lipped up and really cut Vince like deep. And they had to shorten the match. Because I remember watching, it looked like you could have just scalped Vince right there. It really looked nasty. Zach tried the one-legged moonsault that he really tried to do a whisper in the wind. He missed that completely. Vince covered him. Vince wasn't mad at all. Zach also got a standing ovation before getting to the back. Zach thought he was going to get fired. Fair. I don't necessarily blame him. And Zach basically got starstruck. I'm not going to go over all this stuff, but he tried to big league himself in Canada like, oh, I can drink. I'm Zach Gowen. I'm this. And he thought that's how people were supposed to act. But he admitted he was an asshole. There was a 6-man tag where he teamed with Angle and Bork against Haas and Benjamin and The Big Show. And Haas and Benjamin and The Big Show taught him a lesson because Zach, instead of just doing the thing where, hey, I would like to do this, what can I do for you to get to that point? Be gracious, considering he is 19 or thereabouts and is in WWE and basically not necessarily, doing anything other than just being kind of an egocentric son of a bitch by his own admission. He essentially gets the shit beat out of him there. And then we go to Detroit. Bork had just recently turned heel, I believe, after, if I remember right, I think he lost to Angle at SummerSlam. I don't think he was a champion here. If I remember right, this was in between SummerSlam and that famous Iron Man match where Bork had beaten him. And actually, now that I think about it, Bork had done this. I'm trying to remember because Angle had beaten Bork and The Big Show at Vengeance, same show that Zach Gowen had, lost to Vince. And then they had Angle and Bork had a rematch at SummerSlam where I believe Angle won. And then they did the Iron Man match. So this is somewhere between the SummerSlam match and the Iron Man match because Bork had turned heel. And Bork then ended up, I believe, winning the championship and going on to have a run until No Way Out 04 when he then lost it and then had the feud with Goldberg. And they sort of cheered Goldberg because they knew he wanted to leave, but Bork was the one that was leaving. And how dare you, and we're going to boo you and say, fuck you, Lesnar. So anyway, yeah, he got the shit beat out of him. Haas and Benjamin beat the shit out of Zach Gowen along with the Big Show. And then Bork beat him in a bloodletting match where the mom was there. It wasn't called a bloodletting match, but Arn taught him how to blade. Zach either didn't listen or didn't understand, but he tried to gig, and then gigged a little bit too deep, and he was trying to keep all the blood in his head, but it kept flowing out. Some 41 line to us. F5 into the post twice. The mother jumped the guardrail and was like, you didn't tell me about the blood. What the hell? So, yeah. There we go. They did cut out, I believe, the last pay-per-view match that he had, I think was against Matt Hardy at, God, what was the hell? No Mercy 03, I think, because he wasn't part of the Survivor Series 03 card. Armageddon '03 was a Raw card. Because they did brand exclusive pay-per-views to establish brand supremacy with their white hoods and everything. He was not part of the '04 Royal Rumble, as hilarious as that would have been. They gave something to Ernest the Cat Miller, but they couldn't give it to goddamn Zach Gowen. So anyway, Zach has an autograph signing. His dad was there and handed him a letter, something about reconciliation. And Zach kind of took it, well, oh, I see. You weren't there when I needed you for all those years, but now that I'm famous, you want to be here. So the dad apparently hit the mother. That's when it was revealed. And the dad has passed away because he couldn't overcome his own vices. Oh, wah. You shouldn't have been an abusive piece of shit. I'm not going to say, by the way, that I'm glad he's dead, but it's like, well, if you don't atone for what you did, don't make right, you kind of deserve what you get. So, Zach, by the way, never saw him again after that and vowed he'd never be like him. He wasn't, the abuser part he wasn't, I will say that. So then, Brock had, broken his leg, and he was supposed to be, in a wheelchair and possibly in the hospital. But then he was out in Philadelphia with friends, acting all fine and everything. John Laurinaitis was a little bit upset, and John Laurinaitis, got told basically, Johnny, it's fucking fake. Everyone knows it isn't real. Yes, but the illusion of it. And the fact is you have this, and I'm not saying that Zach was, even though he admitted that he wasn't the best guy, but you have, by some people viewing, this punk kid that decided, oh, wrestling's fake, oh, all these the pain, blues, and agony and all that, it's like, that's fake. So he had a match against Tajiri, Akio, and Saito. Akio, by the way, would be Jimmy Wang Yang. He's your boy, yee-haw. They did a double STO. Zach got a concussion, had some time off. I do remember that. And he had too much heat, so he was going to be given more time off, but still get paid, I assume. And then JR called him in and said, look, we want to have you, the door's open, but you need to mature. Zach took it the wrong way, like not to get better, not to atone for things because he admitted he was partying. He took it that he was a piece of shit and didn't matter. People expected he got fired. They weren't necessarily happy, but they expected it. But his ego and the vices even were starting to take hold. He could have done more. Rhino even mentioned he could have done sporadic matches, but been a GM, contributed. Jimmy Jacobs even said he could have contributed. And then the drug use and the partying and everything ramped up, just like his dad, because his dad had those vices. He went to TNA in 2005. I could have swore that Zach Gowen was part of the Victory Road 04 X Division Gauntlet Battle Royal thing. It was either their turning point. I think it was Victory Road. And he possibly could have been offered a contract. And then he went to the bar, he drank, and he took some somas, and then he went to party, he saw the Jarretts were partying, well, specifically Jeff Jarrett with some of the guys, and asked Jeff Jarrett, by the way, who was helping, if not completely running TNA, along with Stupid Dixie. Check out my reviews of part 1, 2, and 3, if you want to know my thoughts on TNA and also Dixie in general. He asked, hey, do you know where I can score some coke? He asked the owner of the company about scoring coke. My God, he didn't get the contract. I know, bit shocking. He went back to the Indies, and he had opioids, bennies, or benzos, whatever the hell those are, and alcohol, and he was just really not doing well. Jimmy Jacobs was, him and Zach were living together. Jimmy would talk about how Zach had no self-control, not that Jimmy was any better. Zach was 24. He met Kelly when she was 18. They ended up getting married. And apparently, even though he did care about her, he kept trying to get sober, kept trying to detox, but it just wouldn't stick. He talked about doing a pizza delivery in Detroit, an armed robbery. He had, $40 in cash and stuff like that, but he, was told to turn around. Oh, he's going to get killed. Nope. Guy told him to run. He ran and then got out of I believe his prosthetic leg, the area, a couple oxy. He wasn't willing to part with those. He was willing to die for those. That's part of when he knew he had a problem. This was about, by the way, around 5 years after he had pinned the Big Show on SmackDown with that one-legged moonsault to a thunderous pop. And he said that's how quickly stardom to this can come crashing down. I mean, and some people crash quicker, but that is really a big fall from grace. He talks to his mother. His mother's trying to help him and talk him through it a bit. And then says, hey, wait a second, I want to show you something. There's a letter from WWE. It's about the new rehab treatment program to current and former wrestlers, talents, whatever. Those that want to get clean, they will pay for the sponsored rehab. Sunny took too much advantage of that and never stuck, and then she killed somebody. It's just like to remind people that Sunny had done a whole bunch of stuff and everything, but China was going to have bad images searched of her if, somebody's children went on there. Hunter. Nevertheless, has nothing to do with Zach Gowen. Zach Gowen does get clean. Jimmy was hopeful, but he didn't think it would stick because it hadn't stuck to this point. Zach had done some wrestling, or gotten back into wrestling, and even though, yes, there are the bumps and everything, he's more mature. He put on a little bit of muscle. He had some appearances in Ring of Honor, and he's done public speaking about his addiction issues and stuff like that, and how you can find ways to continue to shine. I knew about his public speaking stuff, and I was very happy for him. And then I remember he faced off against Trevor the Bald, a.k.a. Ricochet, and his wife and kids were there. Zach, not Trevor the Bald. He has a wife, just not kids. And other than that, Zach is happy doing public speaking. He loves being a father. And again, open, honest, and admitted that he was the one that was at fault. So credit to him and good on him for getting clean. And you know what? Wouldn't mind AEW giving him some more chances to do stuff because he's only in his early 40s. But if he's happy being a father and just happy doing the public speaking and he's content, great. He just happened to have a career in wrestling that flamed out quickly and he would do sporadic stuff. But the most important thing is the man himself is still here. Like Zach Gowen or anybody associated with Zach Gowen is going to watch this. But just want to say, it is a triumph of the human spirit. And somebody that, again, admitted that they were the one that was at fault, but he came out better on the other side. So I want to say in closing, Dark Side of the Ring Season 7. I have reviewed every single season of Dark Side of the Ring. Granted, I went back and retroactively reviewed Season 1, but I have reviewed Season 2, As It Happened, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now this. I do not know if I have Season 8 in me, and I'm going to explain why. If they don't release Season 8 sometime next year, I'm serious, if they don't have Season 8 ready by even, say, August or September of next year, I don't know if I'm going to review it, guys. I've kind of reached my own end of the road. Not like, anything bad's happening. Don't worry, health-wise, I'm fine. More or less, but I've kind of reached the end of my road here. So if they don't have Season 8, if they have a Season 8 that's not out next year, I don't know if I'm going to be reviewing it, guys. Only so much fuel left in the tank, only so much energy left before I just have to say enough's enough. That being said, it has been great reviewing Dark Side of the Ring. I still have more content this year. But yeah, there you go. That is the end of that. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland. I do also want to thank everybody for tuning in to a couple movie reviews that I did recently. Ice Cream Man got quite a few views, 700 plus, when I completely destroyed it because Eli Roth is a terrible director and a terrible human being. But also, I recently reviewed Buddy. That is an upcoming, as of this recording, horror movie about a kid show mascot that basically is much more than he seems. And that one is sitting comfortably as one of the highest viewed videos of this year. So thank you guys very much for still tuning in. I really appreciate it. Dark Side of the Ring Season 7 is a wrap, and perhaps my reviewing of Dark Side of the Ring is a wrap. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Maybe I'll find the Fountain of Troubled Utes, and I'll somehow manage to go back to being 20 years old when I was youthful and exuberant and had working joints. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Retlin, as I said before, and until we see what Dark Side of the Ring has, happy trails to you.